Welcome to another exciting edition of Near Mint Comic Radio, your local comic shop shrunk down, gamma irradiated, sworn to protect a world that fears and hates it, and aired live every week, only on the Non-Productive Network, the only place that would have us. I'm your host, Frank, joined in studio, as always, by Pete and James. Hi, Pete and James.
Hi.
Hi, Frank.
On Near Mint, we rank and review comics from best to worst. That's mint, near mint, good, fair, and poor to you newbies, and try to guide you in what to read and what might be better to avoid. This week, hot off the presses, House of X number 5.
The next to the last episode or issue
of House of X. Yeah, absolutely. The penultimate issue. So we're going to do full spoilers of this book and every book that came before. And this is... so last time we did a podcast, the X-Men were killed. All of them. And everybody was debating the hell out of what that means and how long this will affect, whether we're in some sort of time bubble, what's going on. All the X-Men died in a brave, basically suicide mission to stop Mother Mold from coming online, thereby stopping Nimrod from being developed in the future and wiping out all of mutant kind.
Last week we were discussing, does this take place in the Marvel universe that we know?
Right, so far, House of X and Powers of 10 could just be completely in its own little universe.
Could be its own thing.
However, I was reading another comic book that came out last week, Invaders number 9, I believe it was, where there is a character that references the things going on in Krakoa.
Okay.
Now.
So confirmation that this is in some way
in Krakoa, that was it.
In some way something happening in the Marvel universe that everyone is aware of.
Implication, I wouldn't say confirmation, because we don't know what the situation on Krakoa is.
The situation in Krakoa, no one's been there for 100 years.
Yeah.
No, but it leads us to believe that it is probably more in canon than not. Yeah. And last issue, as I said, we were faced with the elimination of the entire X-Men team, going out on this brave mission to found a new country by eliminating its greatest threat, which left us with a lot of deep questions about what it means to be an X-Men and whether or not any of these people will have really survived and what does this mean for continuity and etc. All answered in this issue, where it's just we can resurrect X-Men all the time now.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a reaction, James.
Oh my God. I've always been like someone who's, I don't know how I feel about resurrecting people, but definitely they're all
in
like...
In comics, correct?
Not like in comics. I mean, just like just the whole idea of resurrecting people in general. But like Professor X and Magneto here seem to be like, yeah, this is all fine. It's just like exactly the same. And I'm like, I feel gross about this on every level.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. It's like, did anybody else come away from this issue just feeling dirty?
Yeah, I did.
It's really uncomfortable.
It's like, wow. To say nothing of the fact that the resurrected X-Men come out naked and stay that way for their entire presentation.
Full nude. Like, nah,
they're like covered in this goo.
I get the birth kind of, the whole metaphor going on there. It just the idea that you can just like take an empty carcass and like just reinsert the memories of the last person who lived that life. Like, I mean, just scientifically speaking, the whole like clone theory, the whole clone theory, right? So it's the idea that you're never truly going to be the same person, because if you know that you died, or if someone around you knows that you died, you will always unconsciously be affecting them in that way. Right? Whether it's now X is maybe a little bit more protective of Scott, or that
the exact
opposite, right?
Well,
he tells us, he's like, I really don't like sending you out to die, even though it's very easy to bring you back. But you said it and you did it. Like, I don't know why that would be the case.
Now, here's the question, though. If the fact that other people treat you differently because you were dead is the main problem with it, what if it becomes the norm and people expect that you can be brought back?
I think even that...
Does that then completely remove the stigma?
I think that's its own implication that's bad.
Yeah, it may not be a stigma in the way you would classically think of one, but it is different. In fact, they even mention it in this book, where the mutants who were part of the, quote, resurrection machine weren't treated as if they were like heroes. They were transcendental.
They were a cultural touchstone.
Yeah, they were this amazing thing. Beyond founders, they were much more powerful and much more linked to one another. Yet barely any of them, I think maybe none of them have a speaking role in this. I don't think the 5 mutants that are using their powers to build this resurrection machine. It's not even a machine; it's a process.
Yeah,
it's mass production of mutant beings.
Actually, is an interesting thing. Now that I think about it, that they're referring to themselves. Presumably, these are Xavier's notes that we're reading,
right?
And he refers to them as a machine.
Yeah.
As we're dealing, especially over in Powers of 10, with the implications of biological beings merging with machines and becoming machines.
Right, and here you see it being expressed openly as a good thing and what they are trying to aim for. So we got deep in the philosophical, which I think is amazing. I do want to dial it back a bit on the narrative. All right, this is slightly different than what the philosophical implications of what they're doing is. It's the narrative implications. So last week we presumed, I think, that there was gonna be some tie-in between the pods that we saw at the very beginning of, I think it was House of X was the first issue, and the fact that the X-Men have died utterly. Right, we know that they are not all going to die. Yeah. It's not going to be forever. But we kind of I think the thing I was toying with the most in my head was Krakoa in some way, especially with this very atypical Xavier that we see, seems to be making its own mutants, which maybe none of the mutants we see moving around in the story are in fact the real X-Men. Maybe they're all prisoners of Krakoa, and these are pod people out there living and dying for the cause. That would have been interesting and would have been one way of taking it, certainly. And I feel like we got something that was surprising and significantly different than what I expected. We didn't get pod people, though people who are dying are not the real X-Men. Instead, we got no, they're the real X-Men, but the real X-Men are now immortal. They can just keep regenerating themselves in new bodies. And I don't know. It's very uncomfortable for the philosophical reasons that we kind of toyed on, but it's also kind of uncomfortable for the narrative reason. What was that last issue about sacrifice and you have to suffer for the creation of your country? Not really. You just found a way to make yourselves immune to death. And, all that scene where the person blows himself up to stop the X-Men from boarding the ship is now completely in a new light. He did kill himself to stop the X-Men from dying. The X-Men just lost they respawned. They're video game characters. Mm-hmm. They respawned back on Earth in Krakoa.
I guess, but I don't even know if... I mean, so assumably Cyclops and Wolverine and Jean Grey, they don't know anything about this.
No, they know.
When they're going out to fight, you
think?
think?
I think they did know,
I think there was a lot of subtext in there. I don't know about the team.
Well, I'm thinking about certainly Xavier and Eric. They know, no. But I'm thinking about the conversation Wolverine and Nightcrawler have in the previous issue. Right? It's not in the
House of X
previous issue.
4,
in House of X4, Wolverine is like,
do you think we're going to die?
What's it going to be like beyond death? You know what I mean? Wolverine plunges himself into the sun. He definitely thinks he's dying, and. Again, we get the philosophical debate of consciousness. Theoretically, he did die, and this is just a new consciousness or whatever. But
there's so many things I want to tag and go back into right now. All right, number one is, did Wolverine die? Because Wolverine is the character that does not die. We joked last episode that if anyone's going to start, we talked of the two characters that died in that scene, Nightcrawler and Wolverine. It seemed like Nightcrawler was the bigger sacrifice because he teleported Wolverine in. He was just transport.
Yeah, he would just die in space.
Right? And he vaporized because he was close enough to the sun, but still.
Yeah, and Wolverine, we've seen in other comic books, if he's got two atoms to rub together,
he comes back.
He'll come back.
Right. So, the argument is did he actually die at all because he's Wolverine? But that becomes it seems more genuine that he does die because they had to resurrect him. And does the resurrected Wolverine have adamantium?
I don't know.
That's actually a very good question.
Would they go through the process of...
are they going to just Weapon X him again?
That's not...
So there's two ways of reading what you're saying, James, is either the characters did know that they were going to die and are just sort of showing you think this is the end for us? I'll see you next time. Whatever. I'll see you at the Golden Gates when by that I mean the pod that opens up where we come out of
the golden pods,
which makes it like ridiculous, or it leaves a bunch of unanswered questions about why the X-Men left a pod and didn't think anything strange of it. I mean, their memories are backed up, I think, weekly is in the text.
That is what the text says.
Maybe it's updated more often if you're about to go on a suicide mission, but still, they leave that pod.
Xavier made sure that he had like a mind connection to them the entire time. Like, and that was important to him.
There's so much plot delivered in text in this that if Xavier makes the pod people not realize that they're pod people, it's not delivered at all in this.
No.
I'm sorry. If anything, it reads that they absolutely were aware of it because they were literally marched around and everybody celebrated that. Yes, you are the original. You are a mutant. You're perfect. You're Cyclops. You're this person. You're like everybody.
You're naked.
nobody cares about that part.
Nobody says that.
So to me, from a narrative perspective, it makes it like that line keeps going back and forth with who's right, the mutants or the humans, etc. And it was a playful at first, and now it just feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the story is we've almost skipped over this part, but like Emma Frost basically.
I was about to say we didn't even get to the United Nations stuff yet.
Does say like, yeah, I use my powers to force the Security Council to agree to this. And, Xavier says something a little sly in the background. Thank you for, taking that guilt upon yourself. But it's like, okay, so we're not even pretending anymore that this is just about humanity, mutanity to protect itself. And, there's a lot of gray area that's turning black.
I'm becoming increasingly uncomfortable referring to this person wearing the Cerebro helmet as Xavier.
Oh yeah, it does not feel like him at all anymore.
And I am more than ever convinced that whoever that is exerting some sort of control over everybody on Krakoa.
And that would be maybe more satisfying because it kind of erases some of the I don't like the feeling of seeing my heroes act out of character.
Storm is acting
villains.
Way out of character.
Yeah.
I think the question here is why do these characters feel out of character? Is it, as you're suggesting, some sort of outside influence, or is this the product of, I think the
push too far.
Well, essentially the series kind of suggests with Moira, with the idea of knowing all of your past sins, all of your failures, is this the natural progression? Natural progression maybe isn't the right word. Or is this the result of, I guess, push too far, of the X-Men, of our heroes realizing that no matter what they've done in the, however many years of X-Men history we've had, that they will always be treated as monsters. Yeah. And is that what this leads them to?
And it's a credit to the story that you can't quite tell the difference yet. But it's not all credit. For the first time, perhaps in the entire run, I've run into actual issues with copy on page. So in the Xavier files, the reports, the interstitial text documents, reading that feels more like someone's crib notes of what they think it will eventually say than an actual in-character report. Right? Whether this is from Xavier's viewpoint or from some like clinical third-party perspective or whatever, it's written very goofily. There's a lot of lines in there that feel... I wish I could queue up a few right now, but like, note, we haven't experimented with what this and this happens. It's just so like draft one. It sounds really horrible to say it this way because I don't ever like saying that somebody isn't doing their job when, I can't do that job. But like there's a couple of things like the mind. A backup of every mutant mind on the planet exists. Once a week, Charles Xavier copies the, quote, latest version of every mutant mind to multiple redundant, quote, cradles located in several locations across the world. Not only is that a little goofy of a sentence, it's also like a child's vision of what like a scientist's plan is. Like it's not it's not graceful. It's not as well developed.
Like a 14-year-old X-Men fans.
Yeah, if Hickman did not update his draft from when he originally wrote this, there's like things in this where like you can, if you look at earlier books in House of X or Powers of 10, when you see these little interstitials, it feels like this could be in a government report. Like they're talking about numbers of dead and the percentile chance of invasion happening. This feels more off the cuff.
And it lacks a lot of detail, probably because there's no actual way to put into science what's happening, because that could never happen the way we know of it. But it kind of feels like they didn't try. I hear what you're saying.
I'm not even, honestly, I don't need it to be scientifically viable, because it's magic comic book stuff. I don't really care about that. But I need it to be written in a way where it doesn't feel amateurish, and this feels amateurish. These pages do, and not the dialogue. Even a page later, and the very next page is Emma Frost and Xavier thought bubble conversating.
Oh, I love all the dialogue.
Both characters have distinct voices. They speak to each other in a way that I understand who's talking, even though they're it's beautiful, well written. That weird earlier page, I'm like, what kind of kid is summing up the resurrection plan for the X-Men?
See, the rest of this has been so tight. I'm actually wondering if this isn't intentional.
Okay.
If this is actually showing us something, like giving us a glimpse into maybe part of this is happening from a mind that's coming unhinged or regressing or something
there's
like
a reason why they would leave out all that stuff about the mind control or the mind backups, because maybe it's not real.
I don't know. I feel like we're hoping too much on that one. This doesn't feel like a person losing their mind. It feels more like, again, I hate to be blunt.
That was just an idea, but I mean, maybe
draft one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does feel like I get the concept, certainly. It makes a lot of sense. It's a creepy, interesting world. It's not as tight as it has been in previous books.
It's like they didn't transcribe the one note on the side that said punch this up with more
please punch this up
with more adult language.
Yeah, and something even on the same book, if you look at the mutant diplomacy map, right before that, the little note of which countries are rejecting because of ideological or political leads, and Wakanda.
I love Wakanda.
They do not need mutant drugs, and I'm like, you know what? That's a little line you would probably blink and you miss it. It's good. It builds up a lot of. It's world building without having to have a character like exposition what's happening, which happens in the earlier parts. I don't understand it.
I don't understand why Honduras is just rejecting it.
I'm a little iffy about some of these countries and why they're on the list, but that's another conversation that's way too deep. I don't want to get lost in the weeds for whether narratively it means anything if your heroes can die and come back with a snap of the fingers back and forth, whether there's a giant respawn world for X-Men. I don't want to get lost in the weeds of whether there was the script could be a little tighter in some of the parts, especially the interstitial stuff. I'd like that we started off talking about the philosophical implications of all this. And my takeaway for this is that I'm not sure how heroic the X-Men are being. And it's not so much that do anything to protect your people. I get that. And I get the hopelessness of saying, like, listen, we've tried everything. We always end up dead. We know what the future is. We always end up dead. But, like, again, I keep going back to that scene of a human blowing themselves up in a desperate attempt to keep the X-Men at bay, and all the other X-Men seeming to even out that cold equation, because they also die in an attempt to keep themselves, keep their people alive, stop this machine from coming online or whatever. But we now know that equation was kind of nothing. There was no cost. There was no cost involved at all. And that's really weird to me.
I'm going back to another question I asked before. Were any of these people on the island the real X-Men?
Yeah.
Ever.
That's interesting.
Because another thing I've realized recently, the story preceding this in X-Men continuity was a story in which the vast majority of the X-Men were presumed dead. There was an event that killed off most of the X-Men. And then in these interstitials, we've got this whole list of protocol about not resurrecting an X-Man before they're confirmed dead.
Confirm them dead
or
they go missing for a month.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that is playing into the fact that maybe this quote-unquote Xavier went ahead and replaced the X-Men.
Maybe. And we may be getting a little cake and eat it too in this, where we have to deal with the philosophical ramifications, but we find out afterwards that they're not quite what we think they are.
In the end of the previous storyline, the X-Men did come back. So I'm wondering if at the end of this storyline, the original, real, quote-unquote X-Men are going to come and confront the Pod X-Men.
Right.
So I could see some validity to Pete's theory. I just flip back really fast to the first issue we read in this whole thing. It opens with the resurrection of that team.
It's the same.
It's the same. Sorry, go ahead.
But logistically speaking, is it that exact same scene? Or
I think it is because it's literally the same art.
Did it give us a time?
It gives you nothing. It gives you nothing. No basis for it. It's even without
it's a
words.
Flash forward, if anything.
Even without words, the only words in the entire thing are "To Me, My X-Men."
Yeah,
right.
I would share that assessment with Frank in the fact that it is the exact same artwork,
right?
Which is about as straightforward as you can come with the comic book panels to saying this is a Flash forward.
Right, I guess, but I feel like couldn't that also intentionally be done to throw you off?
It is possible. I'll say it's a valid read. I think it's unlikely, though.
I will
just based on comic book convention.
Also, I guess maybe to wrap this up, there's something about Xavier, not only the way he's acting and the way he's speaking and his actions he's taking, but also the way he's moving. We're on Twitter at Near Mint Show, and there's a tweet that had come out recently. Like, there's something very slightly effeminate about the way he's being positioned in some of these resurrection scenes that I think build on the case that Xavier is being controlled by someone else. The people on the internet were saying that it may have been Moira in some way. I think Pete is on the money. I think we're looking at Cassandra Nova.
Cassandra Nova?
I think she is Xavier's sister and genocidal mutant. Is perhaps the person behind all this.
So I know nothing about Cassandra Nova. Can you guys fill me in?
I think we just kind of did. Xavier's sister,
genocidal twin sister whom he apparently strangled in the womb.
Oh, okay.
And is kind of she figured out a way back. I don't know.
How
she's one of the more dangerous villains they have run into in the past, in the somewhat recent past. Not a very old character.
Similar powers to Xavier.
And pretty well known for at least for some time in the whole pith helmet and explorer gear get up that we see Xavier in
Powers of 10 last issue.
So I think that might be what we're looking at. So but this is not the only place where the mutants are behaving unusually. The other big thing that happens in this really thick, heavy issue is we see the villains of Mutant Past, all these what would be considered supervillains in the mutant universe, finding sanctuary in Krakoa, including perhaps the biggest bad of them all, Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. So this is more of that whole gray turning black for me. Right, you're just saying anybody goes. If you were bad outside, you've got clemency in Krakoa. That I'm not sure about. Very creepy. I'm
kind of okay with that. Like, that tracks with Xavier's general mindset of everybody deserves a second chance. You're a mutant. This is your home. You're welcome here until you make yourself unwelcome. Essentially,
it certainly tracks. I'm not to some extent, but I don't know how justifiable that is. Imagine giving people clemency for war crimes because they're countrymen, they're the same race as you. So if you make it through the border, you're not going to be held accountable for your crimes. It's not as if the people who come in, they're like, all right, you're going to have to serve your time for being a mass murderer. It's like, okay, as long as you promise not to do it anymore, start over here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them that you can make the case that the only reason they did the bad things was to achieve the same goals that you've just achieved.
Sure, but I mean,
first of all, that's not all of them. I mean, M-Plate is there in the background, and he's just a vampire that eats other mutants.
Yeah, I don't. Some of these people just do not. it kind of makes sense for them to be on Krakoa. And the way I originally read Sabretooth, who was the first character we kind of toyed that idea with, is like, okay, he's going to be in mutant jail. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. We don't trust humanity. You're going to try to turn him into a weapon like you always do. So we're going to take him onto Krakoa for mutant jail. But these people just seem to be like, all right, fair. And beyond all of that, I mean, it's more evidence of gray turning to black. Apocalypse to me does not read like it makes sense at all.
Really?
Why he's there.
Really? Because he's the only one that made sense to me out of all of them, the way he was behaving.
Really?
I mean, what he says it directly. You know, this is exactly what I was trying to do. You've done it. Thank you.
All right.
Got nothing else to fight for.
Yeah.
All right. So that is fine. What is it that he was trying to do? Because I read Apocalypse's raison d'etre as an apocalypse. He wants mutants and humanity to fight so mutants become supreme. Mutant is the natural evolution of man. And it seems as if Krakoa's thing is, hey, you stay on your side of the lawn, we'll stay on our side, and let's not bother each other anymore.
I wonder
So
how
either
true that is, though.
That is
Yeah.
the stated goals.
That's
But
it.
when we look at what's actually going on in the United Nations,
Okay.
no, that's mutants dominating the entire world.
Okay, in that
and
case,
dictating the terms.
Yeah,
The
it's just not a war. It's right. Nobody's, it's being done with the same gravitas, air quotes, that politics is done with today.
I get it. That means that this scene is so much darker.
Oh, it's
than
super
it
dark.
seems.
Oh, yeah.
It's not.
It's
so
black.
This isn't Apocalypse saying, "Okay,
This is Vanta Black.
I am willing to come in here and be, to be subject to your rules." It's more like, "Oh, so you are doing this whole apocalypse thing, right? We're going to wipe out humanity. We're just going to, instead of just killing them all by knife, we're just going to, it's going to be more of an ethnic cleansing than a actual normal genocide." I'm cool with that. That's what this is basically boiling down to, if that's your reading on this.
I'll give you the
in which
exact-
case we are 100% in X-Men are bad guys.
I'll give
I think you
I'll
might
give
be
you
right.
Apocalypse's exact view of what's going on here. It's the view of a farmer who understands that you don't pave or destroy your cow pasture. You leave the pasture out there for your cows to graze on.
Maybe. I could see that.
It's like, okay, humanity's our flock now.
Possibly.
We're going to use them for whatever we want.
Yeah, as long as the X-Men are as long as the mutants are in charge, which they clearly are, right? If Emma's influencing votes in government, I mean, who can stop them?
I guess we're going to have to find out about who are we rooting for.
I don't know anymore.
It's weird because I'm on board with the X-Men are treated poorly throughout universe. Like, I get that. I want them to fight back. I think this is why I'm uncomfortable with this book, is because I want the X-Men to. I feel bad for their. I feel for their cause. I want to support their cause, but they are. This is bad. This is too dark.
They've lost the moral high ground.
For a larger world conversation, this does from time to time happen with causes.
Pretty much all the time. Yeah.
Causes start out for the right reasons and go too far.
All right, speaking of going too far, this episode's gone too long, so we're going to have to rank House of X number 5.
I'm going to give it a near mint. I like that it makes me feel super uncomfortable because it means that it's being done really well. It's only a near mint, though, because I also agree with you, Frank. I really love the supplemental material, and some of it in here, it's a little off.
All right. Pete?
I got to be honest, the episode left me feeling really icky and a really, really nasty taste in my mouth. So I'm going to have to give it a winter mint.
Oh. Nice mint. Good. All right. We keep going episode instead of issue, but that's fine.
It's like TV. It's all the same
it's
now.
all the same now.
They're putting out trailers for X-Men comics now.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of good arguments that could eventually be made in these stories. Like, I want the conversation about what this means for the X-Men when you're basically immune to death. Or is this just a cheap way of, X-Men is the resurrection comic book, so let's just lean into it. But this book did not give me that. It just opened it up and allowed my imagination to fill in the blanks, but not quite. And that little the writing wasn't tight enough. It's a good.
Ooh.
It's just good. I'm not saying that it doesn't have room to grow or that there isn't more to be had about this eventually, but like right now, I'm like, I can't honestly say that if they never touch on it again, and if it just like Hickman leaves us with the X-Men currently have a resurrection machine in like the next 2 or 3 issues, well, that's it. It's up to somebody else to question whether or not that makes sense or is a good quote thing to have. But we're not quite at it yet. I'm sorry to say. Thank you all for listening. I hope you're enjoying. We are now completely caught up. So please subscribe to Near Mint in the podcatcher of your choice so you can get someone to geek out with you about these issues as they hit stands. And leave us a good review so that other people can find out about the show.
And share your opinions with us at the Non-Pro Fan Club.
The 3 primary ways: you could join us on Facebook, facebook.com/nonpro, or facebook.com/group/nonpro to chat along with us. You could join our Discord at non-productive.com/discord, or you could talk to us on Twitter, where we're either at Nonpro or at Near Mint Show. We're just learning to use Twitter after a decade on the air, so bear with us.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.